First up, you might want to check out the main overview video for clouds that's linked in the video description to go through the main granular mode. This video will then go through the 3 additional modes, which are the pitch shifter and time stretcher, a looping delay and the spectral madness mode. The first additional mode on clouds is the pitch shifter and time stretcher. The grains are spliced so that they mesh well together, and it's the same way that was used for deglitching early technology in pitch shifters, and it's using overlapping grains to create the sound. I've got a drum loop playing, which I'll just turn up a bit on the input gain. Taking the dry wet blend to 50-50. The position will scrub back through the live audio buffer. You can use that to create a simple delay. Taking that fully wet now. The grain size mimics the time stretching. The pitch more obviously shifts the pitch and tracks 1 volt per octave, as do all the modes in clouds. Sticking at 100% wet, the density has a smearing diffusion effect. The texture is a low pass filter to the left, and then a high pass filter to the right. As we're 100% wet, let's check out the time stretch manually on some of the snare hits in the loop. Back to 50-50 dry wet mix, I'll play around. Going 100% wet and freezing the audio, I'll leave the filter open and use a small grain size and move around the audio buffer. So you can play the audio buffer with CV using an envelope to scrub through that buffer. Here's a different envelope setting. The grain size will set the overlapping windows for the pitch shifting and time stretching. And I can smear the grains in this sound with the density. You can obviously find an area that you like on the position and then add some modulation. Here's a fast sample and hold CV source, which is nearly at audio rate. Adding the input again and turning off freeze, I'll then add some dry signal back in and then play around. So here's the dry sound that I'll be using in the looping delay mode. But first, to get into these additional modes and change the modes in clouds, you press and hold the blend mode and then immediately press the load save button. You can then see we are in the mode select because we've got a flashing yellow LED, and then pressing the blend button scrolls through the 4 modes and we're in the 3rd mode, which is the looping delay. Turning up the dry wet to around 50-50, the position then changes the distance between the playback head and the recording head in a virtual tape setup, and this affects the delay time. Modulating the position will create the effect of vinyl stops and then those pitch shifting delay times. Activating freeze, the audio that's in the buffer is then looped and the grain size sets the length of the loop. First, the position sets the start point of that loop. Pitch is still a pitch control, which is nice and smooth. Leaving this frozen, the density controls a diffusion and smearing effect based on the all-pass filters in the circuit. The texture acts like a low-pass and high-pass filter, like in the pitch shifter and time stretching mode. When freeze is enabled, the trigger input creates a clock synchronized loop that can create steady synced loops or a stuttering effect. Here's a square wave LFO, and you'll see that signal go high when the LED on the cable goes red. And I'll take that LFO in the trigger input up to audio rate. And just bear in mind that the loop start point isn't always the main hit in that audio source as this loops. The third additional mode is the Spectral Madness mode, but first I'll let you get used to the dry sound. It's an old track of mine if anyone is curious, and it's already pretty crunchy and noisy from the audio production. So documentation is thin for this mode and you're just left to play around, although some of it's more obvious as you start to play with the module. There's MP3 style bitrate reduction, corruption and glitches, spectrum wrapping and pause stretch like drones as well. Here's the sound 100% wet and then you'll start to hear these as I start to play around. Here's freezing the sound and then playing around again. You can access the audio settings and all the blend modes in these additional modes as well, and you can also still save the audio buffers. Check out the clouds overview for the main granular mode in the video linked in the description, and hit like and subscribe for more videos every week.